It is 12:15 p.m. and I call this meeting to order, or special board meeting, special call board meeting. Item number 2 on the agenda is going to be roll call establishing a quorum. At this time, the only one that's not present in the boardroom is going to be Mr. Lee Ramon. Everyone else is present. Item 2A, announcement of this meeting of the Alice Independent School District has been duly called, and a notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with Texas Meetings Act, Section 551.043 of the Texas Government Code. Item 3 is going to be the pledge to the United States flag and Texas flag and a moment of silence. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Okay, so we're going to go item 4, which is the public comments. And at this time, there's no one signed up, so we're going to move on to item 5, which is the presentations and information.
Yes,
Oh, wait, that's my part 2, right?
right.
5A is, going to be announcement of the board trustee training requirements for 24-25. So at this time, I'm going to read under board education rule, completing required education each year of service is basic obligation and explanation of sitting board members. As board president, I am required to announce the name of each board member who has completed the requirement continuing education, has exceeded the required continuing education, and is deficit in meeting the requirement continuing education. The following board members have completed the annual team building training: Margarito Magdi Perez, Herman Ariano III, Albert Molina, Jennifer Barrera, Adrian Peña, Lee S. Ramon, and Ciro Zamora. The following board members have completed additional continuing education requirements: Margarito Magdi Perez, Herman Ariano III, Albert Molina, Jennifer Barrera, Adrian Peña, Lee S. Ramon, and Ciro Zamora. The following board members have completed the biannual training and evaluating student academic performance and setting goals: Margarito Magdi Perez, Herman Ariano III, Albert Molina, Jennifer Barrera, Adrian Peña, L. S. Ramon, and Ciro Zamora. The following board members have completed the biannual training in identifying and reporting abuse and trafficking: Adrian Peña and Ciro Zamora. The following board members have scheduled training to timely complete the biannual training or identifying and reporting abuse and trafficking: Lee Ramon, Herman Ariano, Jennifer Barrera, and Albert Molina. The following board members have completed the biannual training of school safety: Adrian Peña, Ciro Zamora, and Lee Ramon. The following board members have scheduled training to timely completed the biannual school safety: Herman Ariano, Jennifer Barrera, and Albert Molina. Exceeding requirements continuing education is board member Adrian Peña. Exceeded the required amount of continuing education by 12.25 additional hours. Board member Ciro Zamora exceeded the required amount of continuing education training by 7.25 additional hours. And that is it. So we're going to move on to item 6, which is the action items.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. The only action item is to recommend approval of the guaranteed maximum price, package number 2, for the construction of the new Alice Memorial Stadium, as presented by Weaver and Jacobs Construction, and authorizing the superintendent to execute the GMP amendment. So I invite PBK Chris, as well as David Iglesias from PBK, to conduct their presentation.
Good afternoon, Dr. Trevino. Good afternoon, Dr. Trevino, Board of Trustees, Mr. Board President, I'm David Iglesias with PMK. As Dr. Trevino mentioned, we're here to present on the GMP for Package 2, the new construction of the Alice Memorial Stadium. So with me, I have Mr. Chris with Weaver Jacobs, GC. And so we wanted to first just refresh where we're at as far as the overall design and some of the items that we've been working with Weaver Jacobs to get to the budget that we need to in order to get this GMP approved. So we received bids 2 weeks ago based on package 2, and we were working with Weaver Jacobs to get the price where it needed to be. So we've been going back and forth, and so there are some items that we explored to save on possibly some finishes, some of the materials and so forth, but without jeopardizing any of the overall square footage and the overall functionality of the stadium itself. So these are some of the items that we want to present this afternoon. So the overall site plan, nothing's changed there. As far as the locations of the field events, the location of the stadium itself, the field house, and the parking that we're showing since the initial concept. And then we do show an option of the possibly additional parking there where the transportation was located. And so we gained some additional parking spaces, just shy of 200, I believe. So we also have a rough order of magnitude, which is a ROM for that scope of work that we'll touch on shortly as well, to see what that cost would be to demolish the transportation and to build some additional parking in that area. That is not currently included in the GMP price, but we had asked Weaver Jacobs to provide a rough order of magnitude as far as what that cost would be just based off of that. So, just a blow up of the site showing the layout of the stadium itself, the visitors and the home side, the concessions, field house, and the field events, and the scoreboard location, and then the bus drop off and pick up there on the north end. And then the floor plan. Nothing has changed as far as the floor plan is regarding, reduction of square footage. The plumbing fixture counts remain the same. So we just wanted to show this is what we had presented initially during the initial concepts. The main entry into the stadium itself, there on the west side, and the team store, the storage, IT closets, etc., the lobby into the elevator. And just a blow up of the restroom and the concessions area. On the home side, this would be the home south side. And then this is the visitors, a blow up area of the concessions and the men and women's restrooms. Plumbing fixtures, as I mentioned, the number of plumbing fixtures remain the same. And then the floor plan of the press box, square footage stayed the same, spaces and the functionality remain the same as well. So, and then the field house, same, square footage remained the same. We did look at some design elements as far as the canopy that we're showing along the rear, reducing that for some savings. And then there was the an overhang that we were showing at the main entry that we reduced as well to save some costs. So you can see here the overall look of the home side, showing the chair backs with the letter A. And then a view of the west side, the main entry. The difference from the previous concept where the wings that are on the sides of the roof that come down the side of the brickwork of the big white columns that are shown on either end. Those wings came down a little bit further. There was a lot of support structure associated with that design, columns and so forth. So we brought those wings up a little bit. So the roof line and everything remains the same, but we were able to explore, or we were able to achieve some savings by reducing a bunch of metal structure. And so the look remains the same. We just reduced the depth of those wings. We brought it up a little bit higher. The other item is the brick. So we changed the brick to a smooth face CMU block. So the color combination remains the same. It'll be a colored block, but there's a savings with the smooth face block because of the size material cost, and then the labor to install the block, and it's also quicker to install as well. So those were all elements we considered. This is just a blow up of the main entry. This is the underside of the bleachers in the concourse area. So the one element we explored here were the metal panels that you see in the background, the gray metal panels. Just by change of manufacturer, we're able to save some money as well. We still have it's a pre-finished metal. We still have the warranty and the guarantee from the manufacturer that was requested as per specifications. It's just a change in manufacturer, but the look remains the same. This is the underside of the bleachers. And this is a view of the multi-purpose room in the press box. So the one item that we looked at were the countertops here, possibly going to a laminate surface instead of a solid surface like the counters. And then this is the entry on the east side. This would be the visitor entrance. So we're still maintaining that entrance. We believed it was important. This is the entrance of the visiting team. It's going to be coming through the fans, the visiting fans. So, you know, that they're entering into Alice Memorial Stadium. And then the field house, this is a view from the main street. So the one element we changed, there was a metal coping we had above the text Coyotes, the signage. So we reduced that and we were able to explore some savings there. And then same here as far as the brick, we changed the brick to smooth paint CMU that's integral colored. So it still has the same color combination and overall same look, square footage is the same as well. We still have the signage. This is the back side of the field house. As you can see, the canopy that's under the signage that says Coyotes. That canopy extended from end to end, the entire width of the building. And so we reduced that for some savings there as well. So we just wanted to show what that would look like. And then we have the night. So as far as cost savings, I don't know if you want to jump in, I can go through the list.
Yeah, doesn't matter to me, we go through it together, or I could.
So these were some of the cost savings items. And so we thought it was important to go over these items so you can see the value that they were bringing as far as cost savings. And these items we all had also discussed with administration as well. So, and these are also items that we recommended to proceed with for the savings. So item number one is the removal of the perimeter fencing. So we had fencing around the entire site, all the parking and so forth. So we were able to utilize some savings there by eliminating the fencing around the parking area. The stadium itself will still be secure. You know, the concessions, the stadium, the track, the field house would still be secure, but the parking lot would be open and we would just add some barricades at the entrances, similar to what a car lot has, so that nobody can drive in there without it being unlocked. But there was a substantial amount of savings just because it's a big site to put a hurricane fence, which was a vinyl face chain fence that we were asking for around the entire perimeter. So you can see the savings for that. The savings for the change in the metal panel manufacturer. So that was a pretty substantial savings. Reducing the canopy on the south side, as I mentioned, they're on the back side of the field house. So you can see the savings that we were able to achieve for that. Change in lighting manufacturers. So this is just the cost savings to changing the type of light fixtures that we're calling for throughout the facility. This is with the exception of the competition lighting that still must go. That still includes the light show. This is just other lighting that we have within the buildings themselves. So it's just a change in manufacturer. We still achieve the foot candles that we need and we still comply with code. Some of the restrooms where we had tile on the walls, so we reduced the tile to explore some savings there, and the tile that we were calling for on the floor, so we would just have a sealed concrete and some epoxy finish. So
I think you skipped number 5.
oh, I'm sorry. Of the HVAC and the public restrooms. So typically the restrooms are just exhausted. We were calling for an HVAC system in there for them to be conditioned spaces. But as you can see, the savings there is pretty substantial to eliminate the AC. It'll still be ventilated. But the cost for the air conditioning is pretty substantial to eliminate. So we were recommending eliminating the HVAC in those spaces, which is pretty typical for these types of facilities. Just to add to that, the mechanical systems that are needed for these restrooms, there's the maintenance and the running of these units constantly for a facility that's not used, as often for a small percentage of time throughout the year. But they would still have to be run, they would still have to be maintained. So we felt it'd be best value just to have the spaces ventilated for the savings there, eliminating the HVAC. Moving on to number 7, finishes the concession walls. We're calling for FRP, fiber reinforced panel. So we'll just have CMU and it'll be epoxy painted, so it'll be durable. Same thing on the floor. So we'll have sealed concrete floors in the concessions. And then the removal concessions equipment. So we're calling for quite a bit of equipment in the concessions. So this will still keep the 3-compartment sink, the counters, and the tables. And we still have the ice machine as well, right? Yeah, we still have the ice machine. So everything, like as far as the hot dog warmers, some of the other roasters that we're calling for, other equipment that to that extent that we were asking for, we ended up eliminating that for that savings. And I understand that Booster has that equipment already. But there will be receptacles and everything available that they can plug all their equipment into. The countertops will be stainless steel. They'll still be there, and the 3-compartment sink for code will still be there as well. Reducing the landscaping. So we had landscaping throughout the whole site. We had trees, we had shrubs, we had irrigation all along the west side, the property from the west side of the parking up against Sutherland's. We had landscaping out there, so there's a lot of cost to get irrigation out there, to get controllers and wiring and so forth. So we reduced a lot of that landscaping, kept it around the stadium itself and the main entrance. So we were able to utilize savings for that. Structural steel adjustments. We were able to reduce some of the steel sizes, steel members, and depths of some of the items. So overall steel costs, we were able to utilize some savings there as well. Doesn't jeopardize the structural integrity of the building. We do have the emergency responder system as well. It's been required in some cases, but it's certainly a requirement here for the city of Alice. So there was quite a bit of savings for that. And I guess just to touch on that, that is just an enhanced system for, long corridors and closed facilities. And it'll help with the communications in those spaces, but being that this is a stadium, the buildings aren't as big. We don't believe that's going to be an issue or concern. So, we did have some some screens on the roof to conceal the mechanical units. So we're eliminating those, and we're modifying some of the parapets to be able to conceal that equipment. Modifying the aluminum storefront at the press box, so we were able to make some reductions there for the aluminum storefront to have some savings with that. The washer and dryer, we're calling for a commercial grade washer and dryer in the field house. In conversations with the coach, it's not needed. All that is done at their current locker room. So as far as the equipment, we were able to eliminate the equipment from the scope, but we will still have the infrastructure and the connections in case equipment is added in the future. We removed certain sections of concrete underneath the bleachers. So those areas would just be replaced with gravel instead of having concrete throughout the whole underside of the bleacher area. So there's some savings that we can utilize for that. The booster pump. So we were calling for a booster pump in order to maintain the PSI that we're needing for the water pressure, especially in the up to the press box. But since then, we were able to get another flow test by a certified testing agency, And we do have the flows available that we are needing in order to eliminate this booster pump, so it isn't required, so there's substantial savings for that. Exposed painted ceilings in the concessions and restrooms, we were calling for a lay-in ceiling, so we would be eliminating that, and it'll just be exposed structure and it'll be painted. So,
What do you mean by exposed?
so.
Like this is gonna be open.
So we were calling for a ceiling of this, but to eliminate that, you'll see the underside of the structure, you'll see the joists and so forth, the deck, but it'll be painted. So we won't have an acoustical ceiling, especially in these types of areas like the restrooms and so forth, and the concessions. You know, we don't think it's necessary to have, we were calling for it initially. But then that also, you know, helps reduction in cost for the material, the labor, and then also the type of lighting.
And then
fixtures that are-
it's a cement finish also, right, on the flooring and stuff?
Yes, the floor is going to be cement.
I mean, to me, in my opinion, it's gonna look like it's not finished.
We can show images of past projects where it's painted.
Cause that's, William Adams, that's what we did to it, and now we had to go and put ceiling, paint the sidewalk, put tile, we did all kinds, cause they left it kinda like that.
So that's something that we can still look at. I mean, we identify it, but I mean, it doesn't mean it goes away completely. We can look at that and see if we can add that back in.
And you said you'll show us images of that?
Sure, I can show past projects that we have currently in those types of facilities, just so you can see what that look like. And we usually use it's a black, what do they call it, fall? Dry fall, paint. So, I mean, unless you actually look up there, it kind of disappears from your view. And so if acoustics are, you know, a concern as well, we can probably address that in other means as well. But we can definitely share some pictures of other projects so you can see what's been done in the past. I lost my.
Number 20.
18.
Oh,
Next section.
Hang on, 20.
okay. So the metal, as I mentioned in the press box, we had those wings of the metal panel that came down on the other side, so we were able to reduce that. So there's some savings with that. A different air barrier system for the building envelope. So just a change in the manufacturer, there's some savings associated with that. And then the change of brick to the smooth and the split base CMU in lieu of burnish that we're calling for. There's savings associated with that as well. And then the mortar, going with a standard mortar, a color instead of a colored pigmented mortar. Change in the plumbing fixtures, the requirement to just buy All American, there will be some savings associated with that as well. Reroute the sanitary sewer to an existing manhole instead of adding a new, so there's some savings there. The removal of the 3-inch bore of the road.
It was just part of the scope of work that if we could reroute some different things, we wouldn't have to do that.
Okay. And then removal of the concrete encasement of the electrical feeder, so if they run the conduit, instead of having all that encased in concrete, we'll just mark it with tape, so if they're digging in the future, they'll see the tape and know that there's electrical conduit in that area, which is, so there's some savings utilized for that. Different type of seating types, so wherever we do have suspended ceilings, just a change in manufacturer. And the change in the countertops, so in lieu of solid surface, using acrylic. And as far as thermostats, instead of using like a BAS control system, just using thermostats, which is, I believe, currently used in most areas, correct, Michael? Thermostats, Michael? As far as thermostats, just regular thermostats is primarily what you have already on campus, correct? Instead of electric poles.
No need to go to a management system for that, for the amount of usage.
And then modify interior walls of the field house, will maintain the performance, so there's some savings for that. And then the electro voice speaker, a different type of sound system, so there's some savings for that. And then the changes the exterior walls, so we would go to a single wide CMU instead of having the brick face. So we had CMU and we had a brick face. So we'll be able to achieve the same look with single wide CMU. So there's quite a bit of savings that, and that would be for the restrooms and the concessions at both the home and the visitor side. So sorry, I ran through that as quickly as I could, but if there's any specific questions, please let me know. So regarding the overall project budget for the 2024 bond, 38 million. Item number one identifies the stadium lights that were installed for baseball and softball. Oh, I changed it on my iPad. Sorry about that. Okay, so overall budget 38 million. And so some of the costs already associated for the bond package were the stadium lights for baseball and softball. Those are already replaced and they're already working. And that cost of work associated for that. Also the GMP package one, which was demolition of the stadium, the cost associated for that. And then currently GMP package two is for the new stadium. So we're showing 34,493,750. And then also the soft costs associated with the project itself, A&E fees for furniture, equipment, geotech that was already performed, some surveying that was already performed, and the materials testing that we'll need throughout the course of construction. So the fees associated for that, so a bond grant total 2024 bond grant total of 37,999,999.68. So
32 cents left.
the one thing to add, the GMP package two has identified item number 3. That includes the synthetic turf system, but that is the Hellas synthetic turf system, which does not include the cooling infill. That's just a standard synthetic turf system. So we identified some consideration of some additional cost items, which would be to go to field turf in lieu of Hellas. To also include the cool play, the cooling infill would be an add of 319,000. And then the other item was to possibly add back the AC and the concessions, the home concessions. That would be an add of 160,000. So that's something that's still to be considered. That would be added to the 34,400,000. So that'll bring the total for GMP package two to 34,973,612.
David, real quick, does that include the shock pad?
No, so the base item number 3 does not include the shock pad with how it is currently. So if we were to add the shock pad in the cooling infill, there would be an add for the Hellas system as well, which I think was.
You get the shock pad, it's two.
We just added, yeah.
Yeah, we just did the math earlier, sorry. It's 221, 822, without the shock pad, which I think you can do without the shock pad still, but it's still 126, 202, so there's a little difference in those numbers.
And the shock pad is for,
So for the Hellas system, in order to add the cooling infill, they have to include the shock pad, as we understand. So it's a.
So the difference in those two is 100 and what?
It's about
$1,000. If you compare apples to apples.
Correct.
I have a question. So
Yes.
the total savings that you just presented to us, these 32 items, that totals, what's the grand total for that? The 3 million?
It's a hair under 3 million, without doing the exact math. When you add everything up on our end, it comes out to a little over 3 million, but there's a couple of either or options.
Right.
And so it's a hair under 3 million. I don't have the exact number there, but,
Yes.
Start.
So I do want to mention that, even though the GMA would be approved at whatever value the board decides, we're still going to continue to, work at additional savings. And so it'll be a continued process as we move along to see how we can, save as much money as we possibly can and also try to get as much in as we possibly can. So there may be some things depending on savings elsewhere that we would put back in as we progress. And so we'll continue to update the board, monthly as we progress where we're at, any savings that was utilized, any ads. I want to be transparent, any possible ads, at least you all are aware, and we can continue to track that. So, I know in the CMR process, there is what they call a buyout savings. So if there is an opportunity where there is some buyout savings as they start contracting and buying out these subcontractors and vendors, now that they have set numbers, there may be some difference in cost savings, based on the original estimate, or ads. So that's a different line item that we'll track as far as buyout savings, and we'll continue to update that monthly to see where we stand. So
yes, we want to every month give you all an update on where we are throughout the project.
And there's still work to do to get to the 34,493,000. To get to that cost as far as savings that we still need to explore. But then the ads, if we're looking at fuel turf, and we're looking at adding the concession or the HVAC back into the concessions.
Or anything else, right?
Or anything else, right? Something else we'll have to cut, right, to be able to add those items back in, so.
And I know I'm not gonna be here for the next item for this, so this will probably be the last time I talk to you all, but one of the things I want to emphasize to the board, of course, too, because one thing that we're looking at is we're talking about the turf and the cool play, right? The thing with the cool play, and which I'm sure some of the guys know, is that it needs, when San Diego did it, they didn't have the cool play, so it was so hot on that field that, it's really made it difficult for the players and people that were playing on the field. So the cool play thing needs to be an addition that we need to either cut somewhere else, whether it's something that, to me, where it doesn't affect our kids. Anything that affects our kids is important to me as a board member, and to our community, because I think that we should cut where the adults, are not gonna get something, because the adults are not the ones that are playing on the field. We're not the ones that are gonna see the best things, I want the kids to be able to see that. I want the kids to receive all that stuff. So if it costs us to cut somewhere else, that's my opinion, of course, then we need to do that. The other thing that I want to bring up is, and we've talked in the past about, is, the difference between Hellas and field turf, because we've had Hellas before and we had issues in the past with Hellas. We had them in the indoor facility. We had issues with them at the indoor facility. We had with the turf there, we couldn't get them to come back. We couldn't, I talked to our previous AD, and he confirmed that we had those issues. And as a matter of fact, he moved to another location and they went with the cheapest turf again, because we want to try to get it cheap, but the same token, my understanding is they went to the cheapest bid and they got Hellas again, and they had issues where they had a seam, I guess, that needed to be sealed, and he received a package in the mail and instructions on how to repair it. So take it as you will, and so I just don't want us to make a decision, or not us, because I'm not gonna be here, but I don't want you all in the same token and, us to make a decision based on, what's the cheapest thing, and then not get a quality product either, because in the long run, we're looking for this field to last another 40 years, just like we did with a concrete stadium that we had. But again, we know the turf's not gonna last 4 years, but we definitely want it to last as long as we can and allow our kids to be able to play on this thing as long as we can, and not have, issues with the turf where our kids are not gonna be able to play on it, because the purpose of the turf is so that it's played on every day and multi-purpose, whether it's the band, whether it's soccer, whether it's, the whole purpose we're doing this is because it is gonna be a soccer field, it is gonna be a band field, it is gonna be a football field. It's just not a football field like we used to have before. So my deal with that is that we not only got to pay a little over, we should take from somewhere else, so that we get a person that we know is going to come back and fix issues that we're going to have, versus somebody that's going to be like, well, we gave you the cheapest you had and you bought the cheapest turf, and so that's what you get, and I'm sorry, we're done with you all. Y'all already paid it, we already bought it, and y'all are on your own. That's just my opinion on that. As far as the concession stands go, I've been on it, you've been in there, no air conditioning, it's hard. It's very difficult, as far, I know that he was concerned about the tiles, but that's what we had before too, there was nothing really on top. It doesn't have, to me, the concession stands don't have to be pretty, nobody's gonna see the inside but the people that are working in there. You know, now the restrooms, on the other hand,
That's
maybe that needs the tile to make it look nice. But like the concession stands, I think we have the ability to, I mean, I'm sure the band, I've been to the band one, I've been to the booster one that we have, and I've seen the other ones, and I mean, this compared to what we had before is like 100% better, you know? It's gonna be 10 times better than what we had before. You know, I think that we're just gonna be blessed with what we have, and you know, it's to sell food. We're not there to, you know, be in there and you know, watch the whole game. We're gonna be in there working, and everybody that goes there expects to sweat and have issues. But we definitely do need air conditioning because that's gonna kill it, you know, as far as how hot it is in there. And we have an AC running 24/7 and you still sweat, you know? And
And
so,
it's gonna be open, so
Yeah.
you're just getting air.
yeah, so,
I do want to add that the concession building itself, I mean, the roof will be completely insulated and the cells and CMU will be insulated as well, so.
and that alone will help with the heat, you know? So if it does have an air conditioner, then it's probably gonna be a lot cooler than what it's been when we deal with it, because I think it was just a roof in the wood, and that's it. It probably didn't even have no insulation where we had before. So it's gonna be twice as better, you know? And you know, I'm sorry that I'm being very opinionated, but, you know, and this is my last time I'm ever gonna be able to talk to y'all about this, you know, and I just wanna make my concerns clear, you know? And, I'm sorry, public, yeah. Yeah, so that's my thing is, you know, when we're looking at this project, it's a major project, and you know, I think that we've been successful with all our projects that we've had here at LSISD, and we've never let them get out of control. And I think that y'all are gonna do a good job doing that. And my deal is that this is for our kids, you know, and that's who it needs to be for, and that's what we need to keep in mind, is that it's for the kids, it's not for us, you know, and we need to give the kids the best, and that's really all. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
On the, I've never seen it. What's the allocation on the field trip? How much are you allocating right now?
So the filter number to include, the cooling and fill would be the 319.
No, total. If we were to do it in natural gas,
Give me 1 second.
you go to the field.
I think, do they not have a copy of, yeah, I don't know what's that. I think you have this behind you.
So when you say this, it's the numbering on the bottom of the where it says pages, those are not right. So apologize for that. That was a mistake on my part, but it'll be on when it says page 9, not actually page 9, but I think we y'all have the.
On the bottom, it'll say page.
It'll say page 9 at the bottom, yes, sir. So if y'all go to that sheet and kind of right there in the middle, kind of on the left-hand side, it says 10 millimeter full forward embedded synthetic dirt trash surfacing system. So that number right there is $3,569,037. That is Hellas's number right there for a complete turnkey track and football field. Okay, so that's everything. So basically what that number consists of is if it's Hellas, they show up, we've done all the dirt subgrade, and then they basically build the track, all the concrete, do all the surfacing, they do all the turf infill, all the gravel, all the drainage system that goes in there. That's everything turnkey. To do field turf, it's an additional 319,262 added to that. So I don't know if that answers your question, but we don't have it broken out specifically just for the turf. It's kind of a turnkey.
It's a track and everything.
It's a turnkey
everything
scope
under
for
it.
them.
Now, my question is, so if it's 3.5, but if Hellas would give us the pool play, it would be more.
It would be 122 more to get.
Gotcha.
So when they gave their bid, they didn't even give the top of the line bid, they gave us like a lower end.
So the base bid for everybody bidding it was just a basic turf field. So basically Hellas gave us their basic price, Field Turf gave us theirs, and then both contractors listed out options to get to different systems. So like the Ecotherm for Field Turf was a listed option. Hellas has their, backwards, sorry.
Yes.
Field Turf has the Cool Play, Hellas
Yeah,
has the
the
Ecotherm.
Ecotherm.
And so basically we can pick and choose from those menus of options that they offer.
It's just, I know we like to use the term apples to apples, but with their systems, it's not necessarily apples to apples. So we try to even the playing field And so we have them break out those numbers so we can see what it is, right? So field turf, their cooling infill doesn't need to have a shock pad. They're able to achieve that with the infill, the pellets that they have as part of their system. For Hellas to include Ecotherm, they have to include a shock pad, so it goes hand in hand. So we try to, separate those numbers so we can see where it is. And so that way, we try to even the playing field.
So is that where Dr. Trino was saying that it was like 100,000 difference if they both did the same kind of, like, I know it's not apples to apples, but.
Right, so we would have to add, the 122,000 to add
It's 345.
for Hellas to add the cooling infill. There is the shock pad question, right? The millimeters.
Yeah, he's saying it's optional, it's not needed, but it's not, I don't know.
Right.
I'd have
It's
to
going to be needed.
research that one or the other, but.
So what was the criteria to put our Hellas versus Field Turf? Just cheap, the one that was cheapest, or how does that work?
So the base, and I don't have the specifications, but the way the spec was written is pretty much, the depth of the, what's the word I'm looking for? Terrace, the grass, or
The turf?
for the grass, the.
Strands?
I get the filament, the thickness of the filament, the length of the filament, the G-max, the performance and so forth. So that's kind of the base. So they both have to at least provide that, right? And then the cooling infill system, we ask for a certain amount and certain amount of volume for the infill. So they both have the same, because they're both going to say, well, our system only needs this much infill and our system only needs this much infill, right? And one may be less than the other. So we tell them, no, both infills need to be this amount and this volume, so we can see what that number is, in comparison. So they provide those numbers, but then they also provide, well, our standard is typically this, so you can deduct this, and our standard is typically this, because they want to try to, whittle it down to where it's in their favor, right, one or the other. So that's where we try to compare the two, evaluate the two, and then,
So to answer your question though, the reason they're on this pricing sheet right now is because they had the most efficient, qualified, lowest bid. So you're dealing with two contractors that are really, I'll just say it, they're the only two locally that will probably end up doing this job. If there's a third or fourth, then they're coming from out of state. So we don't want to not necessarily warrant talking to those folks, but we know that there's these two guys, right? For our recommendations, both can do the job. We have great success with both companies. So for us, we're going to put in the lowest number, the one that has everything that they need to get y'all what y'all are needing and to provide the lowest price for two reasons. First and foremost is because it was a little over budget, right? The pricing that came in from everybody exceeded the bond dollar. So our goal is to get it as low as we possibly can, but not compromise quality. So that's why Hellas is in there. If Field Turf had a better price on day one, we would have had Field Turf in there.
So in the spirit of competition, do y'all ask for a best and final?
I think that's something we'll continue to negotiate, correct? To try to get where we need to, depending on the system that, Alice IHD prefers to head towards. I do want to add that either manufacturer, either vendor, right? The oversight's going to be there. We're going to be on site. We're going to be sure that they're installing as per the specification. They're following the criteria, making sure that it's installed as it should be. And then also, any warranty items and so forth. So, throughout the process, I do want to reassure Alice that we'll be there, as an advocate for Alice to be sure that they're providing exactly what they're supposed to as per specifications.
So I have a last question. Did they provide references for y'all to follow up on?
We don't need references personally, just because we've experienced working with them hand in hand on several projects. So for us, that's not needed. We know what they're capable of and what they're able to do. So.
And have you heard of Mr. Pettis's
So I was just gonna.
prior to that?
I saw you pointed.
Yeah, so I was gonna point to you. So I know the contractor that built that building, and again, I don't know the ins and outs of the issues that y'all had, but just like David was saying, we as a company, Weaver and Jacobs, we stand behind our name, our reputation, and our work, right? And I don't know if I can say that for the same GC that did that multi-purpose building for y'all, but we're the strong arm when it comes to whether or not a subcontractor is going to fulfill their warranty requirements. And a lot of times, if we feel like they should do it and they're not willing to, we're going to step up and do what's right on our end because, again, y'all are our client, right? So I
I don't know what experiences y'all had with them, but I know we haven't had any warranty issues with either company, whether it's Hellas or Field Turf, where they didn't come back and say, no, let us fix it, let us make it right. So, but there's always something new that we can't think of, right? But I just wanted to offer that to you.
And I appreciate that because you are a different project manager than the project manager we had before. And I think that the public, the community needs to know that, because now that we're being as transparent as we can with numbers and providing diagrams and everything online, that creates the buzz in the community. And so it's important that the community know that we have a new project manager, and you stand before us and you're here to answer questions, and you have we selected you because you had a reputable resume and you've done great work locally in other local surrounding districts. So I appreciate you saying that and addressing the concerns that we have, because those are the concerns that we're hearing in the community. So thank you.
And that goes for everything beyond even the turf, right? That's everything we touch, so.
And I know the question of grass came up, but I just feel that, you know, as far as grass goes, I don't think that that's a compromise that we should go with if it's cheaper, just because we promised a field that's going to be multifunctional, you know, and be able to be utilized all the time, you know, and I know that we've already voted on that too, if I'm not mistaken, right, Jenny?
Well, that's what I'm trying to figure out, but yes, it was, and my assumption is that it was in the
December
board meeting as one of these kind of things that they brought to you, right? So, yeah.
You know, so I just don't feel that compromising on, you know, removing turf to put grass is something that we should cut out to save money, you know, because then we're going back to a grass field, which is not playable 24/7. You know, we have to let it rest and then back and forth, and then it just becomes more, I guess, not, I don't know the word I'm trying to look for, but it's not going to be feasible for us to use as much as we can.
Well, I'm somewhat saving, not just a saving, but like right now, you've cut out a little over 3 million. It's kind of the same price as the turf, the less. But earlier on, we've been under 38 million. And you're saying we're saving 3 million. It was still back at 38. I'm a little confused. Which cost went up?
So costs went up all around. I mean, come the new year, there's gonna be an increase, right? And then there's also the concern of tariffs, which everybody's been, you know, aware of. And I think some of the numbers are factoring in some costs.
I would be lying to you if I didn't say that any, if not most subcontractors that we got bids from, whether they were the lowest or the highest, took that into account, right? If you were all business owners and you knew that you were gonna have to buy materials 4 to 6 months from now, and the pricing that you're getting from your steel vendor is only good for 10 days, you're gonna factor that in, right? It would be idiots not to, so I can assure you they did. But once we get this locked in, that's a done deal. They really can't come back and say, well, my stuff went up 2% here and 3% here. Now, if something weird happens and something goes up 15, 20, 30%, none of us could forecast that, then we'll probably have to have a conversation, but I don't think that's ever happened in our lifetime, so I wouldn't expect that, but.
But that's why also every month you would come back to
Yes,
to
ma'am.
report where we're at. And that way we can see if we're continuing to save or continuing to add.
Right.
And the time factor too, I mean, the quicker they're able to contract these vendors and get them lined up and, you know, contracted, you know, it's gonna be key as well. So the longer that takes, right?
So is that what you all are gonna be doing, like, after this meeting? We approve the guaranteed price, you all are gonna start locking in the vendors, or?
As soon as they're contracted and issued a notice to proceed, then they're gonna start working on contracting subs and vendors, correct?
Our work really starts then.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been working hard for the last 4 to 6 weeks as far as the bidding and the cost reductions and all that. But when a job actually gets awarded, approved, and initiate to go forward, that's when the workload really starts for us. It's a dump trailer that just dumps it all on us at one time. And we've got so many things that we've got to do in different directions. So it's a little chaotic for the next couple of weeks, but yes, sir. Yeah, we start right away doing that.
going back to what Maggie said earlier on the quality. So on these bids, and you would know probably better, Chris, what's the wear and tear, like what's standard for turf to replace it? 8 to 10, 8 to 12 years?
I think 10 years is the common number that most people use.
Probably on the max side.
And I think,
I think that's.
The more you use it, shorter, right? The more you use it, to the 8, right? If we use it more frequently.
yes, sir.
So,
And at that point, I mean, if you're replacing it with turf 10 years from now, it's pretty much just the turf itself. The subgrade drainage and all that remains as it is. So I guess it's like replacing the carpet, right? You're pulling the carpet out, you're putting new carpet, right? So, there shouldn't be any major work to be done 10 years from now if the field is to get replaced.
And what would be the cost of just replacing the carpet, like you said?
I wouldn't know off the top of my head, but I mean, it wouldn't be, the 3 million cost. It would just be the turf itself and any infill and the labor associated with it. So.
We've never done that directly as a contractor because generally that goes straight to the Hellas's or the field turfs, and we're never even called, right? Because they're going to do it turnkey. But I would imagine, which I hate to shoot from the hip, but for a football field, you're probably talking somewhere around 300,000 to 500,000, I would imagine. That's just me taking a stab at it.
I was thinking.
Could be.
but each year we'll have to replace it at least 3 times before we pay the bond off. So that cost will be,
Right.
I have no idea.
But you can budget for that though in your M&O type stuff down the road if you needed to. But yes, sir, you're right. Yeah.
I'm concerned.
Well, same thing with rooftop units or any mechanical equipment, you're gonna be replacing condensers or you're gonna have a motor goes out. I mean, it's just your normal.
Smaller items, that's a large item.
And then the same token, we're also, not paying for somebody to maintain a field. And right now we're paying $60,000 to have somebody maintain a football field, or we were paying $60,000 a year just to maintain a football field. So
Save that for 10 years and you've got yourself new turf almost probably.
That's just like the water itself. It was,
that wasn't even including the one.
or the employee, that was, about how much was it, Michael, to maintain that field?
All three fields, so to replace, probably 75 to 80,000 a year just for, and that's for a good rainy season. So you start talking about foliage and if that water's not getting down to that, so you're talking about dead roots where we're gonna have to replace certain sections. It's just right now with the water restrictions as it is, I mean, it's not good. And so we're talking for football fields, 75 to 80,000 a year, just in all the applications.
That's just the application, that's not the employee working it.
Right, that's not.
So that's not even,
hours.
that's not including man hours.
That's just.
Yeah, and that at 80,000, that's 640,000 in 8 years. So that would give us enough money to probably replace the turf.
We plan on replacing employees though, right? I mean, like the employees, we probably want to replace.
Now we probably move them to do other stuff.
Yeah.
The going rate for replacement of turf, it's like $5 to $8 a square foot for turf. For grass, to do a grass field, it's probably a little over 300,000. That's not counting prepping that dirt and having soil samples in order to make sure that it's native grass, so it's not really a big issue, but it could be a big issue down the line, especially with the drought that we're having right now. So it plays havoc, and I'm seeing it now. We're lucky with the baseball field that, it's as good as it is with the couple of rains that we've had, but our guys unfortunate to have a team out there that, goes way and beyond to make it look the way it is right now.
So regarding the site for the transportation, we provided a sketch kind of just showing a parking lot layout, how many parking spaces we could possibly add once that area was demanded. So we asked Weaver Jacobs to quickly provide a ROM, a rough order of magnitude. So this was kind of the cost he was quickly able to come up with. So we kind of broke everything out as far as what he would anticipate or what was anticipating the scope of work would be, with a grand total of 1.7 more or less. This is just an estimate. It has not been designed. This isn't a hard bid. This is just, as I mentioned, a rough order magnitude, just a general idea based on visual and preliminary data of additional parking. So we just wanted to share.
So there's a chance we can save foreskin.
It's a fuel system above ground?
It is. We were told that it's
That be so.
possibly.
Because I think neighboring districts may have use for that above ground storage. In fact, I'm pretty sure there is a market for the above ground storage. Unless we're gonna reuse it at the new facility. Do we know? Oh,
Yeah, we're still evaluating the surveyor. The inspector finished their work. We just got the report today, but the surveyor will be completing it this week.
so maybe we shouldn't like selling it, just, okay. Never mind, scratch that.
Any additional questions?
And so, just for the purposes of if there is somebody making a motion, we would need to add to that, if they choose to do the HVAC on the home concession and field term at 34, we would need to add the soft cost of 2.5, correct, to that number.
Correct.
So we can add the items additionally.
So whatever the number appeared to be.
5 and number 6 is, yeah. So the soft cost, the field turf and the HVAC, if you're adding all of them. If you're only adding 1 or 2, then you know, change your mission accordingly.
If you don't include that, if you're not including HVAC or the field term,
You need to give a number. Because we're not give a number if we're not sure it's the right number.
Because I think we're supposed to just go off the approval.
right, which is to authorize the superintendent.
Yeah,
So then
that's right.
you can
That's
change
right. You can check. They just need to say which ones of those 3 they want, if anybody. Exactly.
to include the HVAC. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so if whoever makes the motion needs to make a decision if they're going to include 4, 5, and 6. If they're gonna include them, they say it. If they're not gonna include them, they delete it, and that way she knows what she can.
Four is already.
Okay.
Just
So just 5 and 6. Okay, sorry about that. Okay.
You're gonna make,
You'll make it.
So I recommend that we approve the guaranteed maximum price, package 2, for the construction of the Alice Memorial Stadium as presented by Weaver Jacobs Construction Incorporated, and authorize the superintendent to execute the GMP amendment to include 5 field turf in lieu of Hellas Price, including cold play, and 6 HVAC at the home concessions. So I made a motion, that's seconded by Ms. Barrera. Any more discussion or any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No one is opposed, so motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank y'all very much.
Before we get started.
Chris,
Yes, ma'am.
spell your last name. Everybody, this is Chris's last name.
ERZOZOWSKI.
How do you say it?
S-I,
SKI.
KI.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. I can't.
How do you say it? Just say it.
Try. I can't give it away.
Z-O-Z-O-W-S-K. Did you hear that, Albert? Albert?
It's tough as a kid.
B-R, his last name. B-R-Z-O-Z-O.
Well, I just need Chris.
Go talk to Chris.
Everybody.
Okay, let's move on to item 7. Oh, sorry, we're still, I didn't.
I'm sorry. I didn't.
We still have to replace the unions, no big deal. Thank you so much.
You don't have to.
I'm just
Thanks. Appreciate it. opportunity.
We're gonna move on to number 7, close the executive meeting session called in accordance with the following provisions set forth by Texas Government Code Section 7A, Texas Government Code Section 551.071, legal matters and board advice, attorney advice, but there is no executive session items, so we're gonna move on to item 9, which is adjourned, and it's 1:15 PM, and this meeting is adjourned.
Is this your last one?
No, I have one more.
Okay, you scared me.
What was the last time?
Well, that's the last time I'm really gonna be able to say anything, you know, I mean, about the project. Because in May is the day I think we switch everything out. I think,
You start and then.
and then we swap out. Y'all are on your own, yeah.
So like, let you pick the dinner for me?
I know, right? It's just like last day, we had the reorganization.
Okay, I already put candles.
Your brother's a senior. It's going to be a really good battle.
Okay. I didn't stop with mine.
Yeah.